Call the meeting to order. In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey statutes regarding open public meetings, notice of this meeting was legally advertised in the Courier Post and South Jersey Times and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Fire exits are located through the double doors to your left and right. Please silence all mobile devices. Stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Here.
Mr. Longfellow?
Here.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Here.
Mr. Perry? Here. Mr. Fazio?
Here.
Mayor Gattinelli?
Here.
Mr. Platt?
Present.
Mr. Gonter?
Here.
All are present.
So I'm sorry, everybody, but we're going to be moving into an executive session in the beginning of the meeting. It's a cost-saving method, so I anticipate it to be 30 minutes. So do I have a motion for resolution for authorizing executive session?
Make that motion. Okay.
Before we make the motion, let me just, if I can, announce under the Open Public Meetings Act, this is Resolution 105-2017. It's to authorize an executive session for two items: litigation, Summit Risk Claim QM 383 under litigation, and negotiations for the Pinnacle Place matter. So we need a motion to not only adopt the resolution, but we're going into executive session at this point, so we need that for those two moves: adopting the resolution and actually going into executive session.
So we need a motion to adopt the resolution. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. And do we have a motion to enter executive session?
Make that motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Okay, folks, we should be back within 30 minutes. If not, I'll come back and announce any extended time. We're going to be...
We have a motion to return to the public meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Here. Yes. What am I saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Do we have a motion for the bill list?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion on the bill list? Seeing none, roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes, abstain to Fazio. Approval of the minutes from February 22nd. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Approval of the executive session meeting from February 22nd. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Move on to ordinances. Ordinance 4, 2017. This is an ordinance of Washington Township, County of Gloucester, New Jersey, providing for the sharing with the Washington Township Board of Education of 44% of revenues generated from the payment in lieu of taxes involving the Washington Square project financial agreements. Do I have a motion to open to the public on this ordinance?
I just wanted to state that I'll be recusing myself from this.
I will also.
Make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance only Only this ordinance this time, please. Come up.
Evening. Bob Abbott, representing Washington Township Board of Education. On the ordinance, on page 2, under paragraph 6, where it's whereas, revenues paid to the township in lieu of real property taxes, net the administrative fee and any portion of the revenues paid to any other government entity, including but not limited to the county of Gloucester. I believe that
That was amended out.
you're a solicitor, okay, because it's not, the copy that we have here does not show that that part has been erased.
That was amended introduction, so the new, ordinance up for adoption, that any other entities, that language is out. It's just,
Right.
but the administrative fee and the
County of
payment to
Gloucester.
the county, that stays.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Keir, live in Whitman Square. On this ordinance, I'm curious. Today I was looking at the property tax freeze from the state. And I went down through the list of things, and I fit everything that was in that particular questionnaire, except it had one that said, "Is your property under payment of in lieu of taxes?" And I would like you to clarify whether or not senior citizens in those townhouses could in fact be subject or allowed to receive the tax freeze. I don't think you have that answer right now, but I think you should have it for the next reading of this ordinance. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none. Motion to close.
Make that motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we have a motion to adopt the ordinance? I'll make the motion.
Second.
Roll call. Any discussion?
Just a point of order. Did you recuse yourself on this matter?
No.
Only
Mr. Perry.
Ms. Donato.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
We had a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call. You ready, Leo?
Yes. Ms. Donato has recused herself. Mr. Longfellow.
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone.
Yes.
Mr. Perry has recused himself. Mr. Fazio.
Yes. Ordinance 5, 2017. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 179 of the Code of Washington Township entitled Property Maintenance and Housing Standard. This ordinance is for introduction only. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Donato.
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow.
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Fazio.
Yes. Move on to resolutions. This is we need a motion to amend resolutions, or add resolutions to the agenda. We're adding Resolution 107-2017 and 106-2017. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato.
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow.
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Fazio.
Yes. Resolution 91. This is a resolution authorizing refund of tax overpayments. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato.
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow.
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Fazio.
Yes. Resolution 92, 2017, authorizing the entry into a settlement agreement in litigation involving Juliana versus Township of Washington for $12,000.
Before you move, I'd like to have an amendment made to that, Mr. President. That needs to be amended in that resolution in the third paragraph where it says, whereas Summit Risk Insurance Company recommends a settlement of the litigation entitled Juliana versus Township of Washington. In there, it needs to be added in the amount of $12,000.
I think that's what he just said, right?
Yeah, I added the 12.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
Do we need to make a motion to amend that, or is it?
No, that's the resolution that's before you.
Okay. So, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 93, 2017, resolution approving the amusement game license for Nifty 50s located at 467. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I would ask you to table that. There's been a problem with the state, and we aren't ready to go forward.
Okay. Do I have a
Motion to table?
I'll
Second.
second. Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 94, 2017, resolution approving the licensing of Ways Massage Parlor. I think I pronounced that right.
I don't know, I never frequent those kind of places, so I don't know.
Could be Weeze, I'm not sure.
Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 95, resolution accepting a maintenance bond for the 2014 road project, Phase 2. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I do have a question. Actually, for 95 and 96, what is the basis for the change? It's great that we're getting a reduction in cost, but I want to know what the basis is. I don't know if Anina, could you answer that for me? Thank you. For 95 and 96.
So it doesn't slide off.
Yeah, that's a good plan. Because, you know, me and this table don't get along well with the microphone. Basically, when we do a road bid,
Can you state your name for the record, please?
my name is Anina Hogan, Township Engineer. When we do a road bid, there's some items in there what you consider like if and where. So when you look on the surface and you have to dig beneath, there may be additional repairs underneath. So when we did that surface removal, when we do some of those repairs underneath, less are needed. And so that's why I had a negative change order.
Perfect, okay. And then for 96, I just, unless you want to come back up.
That's actually 96. 95 was a maintenance bond.
I have 95 as the reduction of,
95.
yeah.
97 is a
96.
reduction of a performance bond.
Yes.
So what happens was when a developer does improvements in the town, they post a performance bond saying they're going to do X amount of work and they're going to successfully do it. After they complete certain portions of the work, they ask for a reduction of that bond so they have less bond monies being held at any given time. So this is a standard practice for development work. If they don't do it all at once and get a complete release of their bond, they ask for a reduction of the bond so they can have some of their capital back.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. I'm sorry, I need to abstain. Resolution 96, resolution authorizing a change order number 1 and a contract for 2013 road program. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Abstain. Resolution 97, this is approving a reduction of the performance bond for Holman Automotive Group, Phase 2. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 98, approving the release of performance guarantee for 7 Enterprise Court. Do we have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 99, this is authorizing solicitation of bids for the lease of property owned by the Township of Washington, known as 339 Salina Road, Sewell, New Jersey, Block 20, Lot 3. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Just for the record, what's the reasoning to, what's the property going to be used for?
I would defer to our tax collector, Robin Sarlo, and QPA. She would be able to answer that, Mr. President, if you allow her to come up.
We're leasing
State
it
your
out
name,
for
please, for the record.
Robin Sarlo, tax collector and purchasing agent for the township. We're leasing it out for farmland. It's the old Zimmerman farm that the township owns. Last year it wasn't farmed at all, but we're putting it out for bid this year, so we'll receive bids on that on the 29th of this month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 100, authorizing the sale of $13,410,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2017, and authorizing other matters relating thereto. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 101, this is a resolution to appoint Brian McCafferty to the Washington Township Open Space Advisory Committee. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Congratulations, Brian. Resolution 102, resolution authorizing the Township of Washington to enter into a tri-party traffic signal agreement. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 103, this is a resolution authorizing the collection of a fee for the use of the community garden. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Last year, there was no fee. The board used the money I donated to kind of make it easier for everybody. I think they need to start to collect the fee. I think that hopefully people that are paying for their plot will pay more attention to it and want to take care of it. So if they're spending money on it, they're going to be more cautious with it. So hopefully,
Also a reasonable fee for what they're getting.
yeah, it's enough, and I liked it. So I think the board's doing a great job with it. So thank you. Leo's here tonight, so I think you deserve a round of applause. And I wish that the rest of the board was here because you guys are doing an outstanding job with that. Thank you. Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Resolution 104, resolution authorizing a maintenance bond for 2013 road project. Do I have a motion?
I'll
Make-
make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Abstain. Resolution 106, this is a resolution authorizing a lease agreement with Kennedy Hospital. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Thank you. Resolution 107, this is a resolution of the Council of the Township of Washington authorizing the execution of an agreement relating to the construction of a residential for sale 138-unit project with a possible off-site affordable housing component. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Move on to old business. Start with Councilman Longfellow.
To answer Mr. Kier's question, you are not eligible for the senior freeze if you pay to the pilot. In addition, the townhomes are not in the pilot. That's all the old business I have at this time.
Old business.
Joe? I don't have any. Angela?
No.
New business? Sean?
No.
Yeah, for the Board of Education, the board voted to approve the Kids' Choice Summer Camp Rental. The board voted to approve Advocate to do an independent financial audit of the district. And also our AP students were recognized and the middle school at the Coral. That's it. And economic development, we had a great meeting today. I think we're on the right track, and I'm looking forward to it.
Joe?
Nothing.
I don't have any. Angela?
I'm sorry, was this new business or
Yeah,
reports?
this is new business.
Oh, no.
We move on to reports. Sean?
Okay, for the Environmental Commission and Open Space, there's a lecture Monday, March 20th at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building. It's Gardening Basics 101, given by the Gloucester County Certified Gardeners. In addition to that, the Environmental Commission is joining with the District Art Night at Washington Township High School on Tuesday, March 21st from 6:30 to 8:30. The theme is Earth, and this is part of the Earth Day festivities. There's the grand opening of the community garden that will take place on Saturday, April 1st at 11 a.m. That's at the Gardens, which is located in Washington Lake Park. There'll be a rain barrel workshop on Saturday, April 8th at 10 a.m. That location is to be determined, and as that's available, it'll be made available on the website. There's going to be a lecture on how to create backyard habitats for birds and butterflies Wednesday, April 26th at 7 p.m. at the library, and another lecture, which is Hunters of the Night Sky, Sunday, April 30th, 1:30 p.m. at the Margaret Hagan Library. And that's all I have for today.
I already did that. I jumped the gun. That was my last.
Sorry. Joe?
Nothing.
I don't have any. Angela?
Just that this weekend, Saturday, March 11th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. is the Mothers Matters Open House, 3 McCord Drive, Sewell, New Jersey, to celebrate Mothers Matter 17th year. Help meet the goal of 2,500 Mother's Day gift bags. Some things on the wish list are bath and body gels, lip gloss, eyeshadow, body wash, hand lotion, things like that. You can also see it. It was posted on the Washington Township, our Facebook page. And following that, on March 12th, there's a Lucky 5K run at the Washington Lake Park. If you would like to have any more information on it, you can contact Lisa Collins.
Yeah, usually we didn't go to this part, but I figure that if we're doing reports, if the administration has anything that they would want to add in the future, we'll throw it to you guys next. I don't know if you have anything tonight, but for in the future. So that
I
way
do,
you're ready.
if I may.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring an issue to council's attention regarding a former employee. Mr. Platt is going to speak on my behalf.
Yes, thank you, council members. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been shown in the records of the Township Payroll Department a payment made to the former business administrator, Bob Smith, of over $17,000 that was through a direct deposit payroll check on January 12th, 2017. When I saw this, I inquired further and I found out what the payments are for. You may want to write these down so you have an idea, so as I go through this report. $8,153.84 was vacation or so-called vacation time. That's 8153.84. And $9,173.07 was for so-called severance payment. When I saw this number, I know there's been a lot of discussion of what people are making and what people made last year and this year. The total salary and benefits paid to the business administrator for Washington Township in 2016, the former business administrator, exceed $123,000, plus benefits, health insurance and pension benefits and so forth. As I looked into this further, I found that there was an employment agreement and there was another set of information that I evaluated, and this is what I found. The vacation time was taken according to what I've been told, and I'd like to keep the employees who provide this information, their names confidential at this point, that Mr. Smith, whose term expired on December 31st, 2016, came into this building at some point after his term expired on January 1st, a holiday, New Year's Day, and as a result of being here for a portion of that day, triggered in his mind, and as he ordered the particular individual, triggered a full 4 weeks of vacation for the entire 2017 calendar year. I think that's inappropriate. It's in contradiction to the civilian handbook, and it's in contradiction to his employment agreement. His term expired at the end of the year. There's no holdover, and there is no way that he would have earned a full year's vacation by coming in on one day or a part of one day, a holiday, after his term expired. The second piece of this relates to the severance payment of over $9,000. And his employment agreement specifically talks about severance pay. And he's only entitled to severance pay if he's terminated by the township before the expiration of his term. His term expired naturally. In fact, if you go by what he did, he went beyond his term to his term plus a day. So I think that severance payment was taken improperly as well. And I have other information that I think supports this position. And unfortunately, as things happen, we find out information about what may have been done by people in the prior administration, and I have to bring it to your attention. And I don't think that these payments were lawfully appropriated. I don't think they were lawfully paid or received by Mr. Smith. So I am going to ask the council, because it's up to you, to amend the agenda, to add a resolution authorizing me as your solicitor to take legal action to recover that $17,000 plus that I think were improperly taken and were in violation of the employment agreement, our rules and regulations, and our policies. And that's what I'm asking for.
Do you have a copy of the resolution on you?
No, I don't have a this would just be a resolution authorizing me to take legal action to recover these funds.
Can I make a comment? Can we have all the supporting documents, and then we'll put it on next time's agenda? I would like to review all the supporting documentation that shows these numbers.
Sure.
I don't feel comfortable doing it now.
That's up to you, and I can tell you that everything that I'm reading is verbatim. I'd be happy to share the documents with you.
Yes, please.
I'm looking through the book now. I kind of wanted to do an investigation on this further. And at that point, yes.
Wasn't that what we're doing by just authorizing?
Yeah, but I want to be presented with more, and I believe you 100%, and I'm pretty upset about it, to be honest with you.
I mean, I'll make a motion to have you look into this legally for the resolution for it.
I would prefer if we could wait till next time so I could have all the supporting documents.
I have a motion on the floor to have Mr. Stewart look into it. Is that what you're saying?
The motion I'm looking for is a motion to authorize me to take legal action to recover these funds.
Basically, you want to start the legal process.
Right, and that doesn't necessarily mean filing a lawsuit.
Right, but I want to make sure that I have all the information, so I know that.
I would say before filing a lawsuit, if I may, we do have a motion, but in that motion, I would want to amend it to say without filing a lawsuit or waiting until our approval of the lawsuit. That way you can start the legal process.
That's fine with me.
That's fine.
So if I don't get anywhere with my normal dunning process, then I'll come back to you for further approval if we have to initiate litigation. And in the interim, we will give you the information, but it's all information, it's all documented.
That's fine.
So
What is the rush though? Can we just put it on next whatever council meeting we have next agenda? I don't know why we have to rush to do this.
Well, it starts his process, and I think that letting him get going on it's a good thing. And I want to resolve it as soon as possible, but it stops him, in this motion, it would stop him from being able to file a lawsuit right away. We'd have time to review all the documents that he's prepared and then give him the authority to file a lawsuit.
I think we should move forward as soon as possible.
First of all, there's a motion on the floor.
I have a motion on the floor.
So second that.
And the motion on the floor is, so everyone is clear, it's for the solicitor to take legal action to recover sums of money inappropriately paid without approval of without moving forward for a lawsuit. That's the motion on the floor as I understand it. Is that correct?
Basically, yeah.
I second that. That's fine.
I have a first by Ms. Donato. I have a second by Mr. Longfellow. Any further discussion, Mr. President?
Anybody?
I just think that, it's $17,000 and it's something that was done improperly, so I don't think that there's any time to waste. I think that Stewart's well capable of getting all the documents he needs. This is just giving him the extra permission that he can do so. And if there is something that we need to get into litigation, then he'll come back to ask us for that and we'll vote on that again. But I see no reason to wait on this.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We have the motion. Any other discussion? No?
Roll call.
Roll call. Let's go.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
No.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Motion passes. Resolution passes, I'm sorry.
Do you have anything else, Mayor, on your report? Or? Thank you, Mr. Fazio.
I think we have a report from our tax collector next. Robin, you want to come up?
Robin Sarlo, tax collector for the Township of Washington. As required by state statute, I provided you all with the annual tax collector report for 2016, which does show what our total tax levy was, what we collected, our outstanding tax, and our outstanding tax title liens, which are liens held by the municipality. Now, for this year, I did request in my budget to put in funds for a foreclosure attorney. So hopefully we can get, Stuart and I are going to work on that, getting the list together and the properties and see what we could foreclose on, possibly get them off the tax rolls and sell what we can. So if anybody has any questions about the report?
I would only tell you that I've seen collection rates. I've never seen collection rates this high, and that's to your credit.
Thank you.
And the last piece that she mentioned, there are properties that go to tax sale that nobody buys, and there's a lien that continues on them. We have an ability to start an in-rem foreclosure process to get those properties back on the tax roll. So Rob and I are going through all those properties to make sure that they are worthwhile pursuing, and we should have a report for you within the next 30 to 45 days.
Would we vote on them by resolution? Or?
Yeah. What we would do is Robin would come back, we'd give you a report, and essentially what I would be looking for next at that point, if there are enough properties, you want to do the in-rem foreclosure process once every 3 to 5 years. If you have a lot of properties, especially after the Great Recession, And what I would ask you to do is actually to vote on, if you think it's a good idea, to authorize Robin to go out with a RFP to retain an attorney to file the in-rem foreclosure actions. There's attorneys that specialize in this work, and that would be the next step, to have somebody go through that process. And that process is a fairly long process. It could take a year to two to actually go through that process. The other piece of it that's a positive thing is that when you file these in-rems, a lot of people who get notice of it finally wake up and they actually pay their taxes. You get a lot of people paying taxes at that point as well. You may not have to go through the procedure on, let's say if you had 50 parcels you were going after, you might get 25% people paying the taxes right then and there. So there's an automatic positive benefit. But we're not going to do anything unless you guys authorize it. That's all I have for Robin. Thank you.
Any others? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Rob. Nice job.
Move on to public participation. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
Make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public wishing to come up? You have 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, Mrs. Mayor, good evening. Dr. Brian McBride, 86 Goodwin Parkway. This evening, I want to revisit topics that were discussed at the last 2 meetings, and that topic is civility. And I want to do so reminding everybody tonight and the folks at home that he who is without sin should cast the first stone. So let's specifically shift the discussion to civility in the media. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Democratic Party, including some elected officials, have no problem slinging mud at their opponents. For almost 3 years since I moved back into town, I watched as my friends and neighbors got dragged through the mud. First it was Ginny Murphy, who's currently president of the school board. Then it was her husband, Kevin. Then it was Council President Fazio. Then it was Council President Fazio's business, right in the middle of Channel 6 Action News. Then it was Tiffany O'Reilly. And let me tell you, that last one really got me, because I know how much Tiffany and her husband, Jeff, do for this town and for the underprivileged children in this town right out of their own pocket. So I sat there and I said, well, 2 can play that game. The scientist in me wanted to do a sociology experiment on social media. I figured that some of the Democrats needed to see what it felt like to have someone make fun of them and their shortcomings. So I conducted my sociology experiment on social media in a manner consistent with my rights under the First Amendment of our Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen of this township, neighbors, I can tell you that when the shoe's on the other foot, people don't like it. So for our government to function effectively, what I saw at the last meeting, the personal attacks need to stop. But you also need to be mindful that people need to accept that people on this council and the people who elected you and voted for you are going to still hold you accountable for the decisions you make. And as President Harry Truman once said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. So for the good of the town and to help restore the functionality to what I feel is a dysfunctional government, I'm going to take the first step tonight. I'm here to offer my apologies to Councilman Longfellow and Councilwoman Donato for my sociology experiment. I offer an unconditional apology to both of you for any hurt feelings that you had and any ill will that your families had as a result of my sociology experiment. But, and I do so with humility and free of any coercion, but the one thing is that I offer my apology with a request. I request and challenge both of you that for the good of this town, that I think that both of you should apologize to your fellow members of council for the uncivil behavior that was exhibited by both of you on video at the last 2 meetings. Thank you. And just as an update on the petition to place the salary ordinance in the ballot, ABC News projections show from our volunteers that we are within 100 votes of signatures of the minimum needed to place the salary ordinance on the ballot this November. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Keir from Whitman Square. Mr. Longfellow, you made a statement about the payment in lieu of taxes, and I didn't quite understand what you said.
So if you're paying a pilot if your mortgage, I'm sorry, your taxes are part of a pilot, you are not eligible for the senior freeze. However,
Exactly.
for those townhomes, they're not included within the pilot agreement. They were moved out of the pilot agreement. They're paying ad valorem taxes, which just normal taxes. So they are not part of the pilot.
So we went through all that harangue about that, and they've taken them out of the pilot.
They were out of the pilot all the way back then. That hasn't changed.
Glad to hear that, because
sir.
there'll be a lot of seniors probably want to move into those.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good evening. Chet Nowacki, Heritage Valley. Just have two really quick questions. First of all, tonight, when I picked up the agenda, and it was the most current agenda that was just put out there, the most current agenda, I noticed that tonight when you voted on resolutions, you voted on Resolution 106, which was a leasing agreement with Kennedy Hospital, and Resolution 107, which was for a 138-unit project. I would just ask that when the agenda is put out, that all the resolutions be put on it. And, you know, once again, this wasn't a resolution that I picked up this afternoon. This was put out tonight as the meeting started, so I would have thought that it was the most current information possible.
What happened with that was Resolution 107, we weren't sure if it was going to be on the agenda because we had to go to executive session to discuss the matter. And Resolution 106, I believe, just came in real late, if that's not, yeah.
That's
what
correct.
the deal was with that. And it's something that we've done last year, and all it is, it just allows Kennedy to park in the parking lot here, essentially is what it does. And then they shuttle back and forth. And that's what 106 is.
Okay, that's fine. Just one other question that I have. When we were talking about the possible collection from the previous business administrator of approximately $17,000, when our solicitor currently pursues that, is that part of the fee that the township pays him on a contingent basis or on a retainer basis, or are there billable hours involved in collecting $17,000? And the reason I ask is, if it's going to cost us $10,000 in legal fees to collect $17,000, it doesn't make sense.
The answer is no, that would be part of my salary, so there'd be no additional charge to the township.
No additional billable hours.
Part of what I would do, yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
And Chet, just so you know, Resolution 87 was just left on the table. That's actually on there, the 138 unit, and was just changed to 107. So really, it was just an amended.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think the other thing of what Stewart is going to be pursuing, I think that if it ends up being a criminal case, I think we should make it a point. You know, somebody came in here, essentially robbed the town, which, you know, I think nobody up here would be able to, you know, swallow that. So I'm looking forward to that investigation, and I wish them luck in that.
Good evening. My name's David Wilson, 19 Goodwin Parkway. And first of all, I'd like to thank all the councilmen and ladies and the mayor for your public service. I know it's a tough job. I was trying to prepare myself for the meeting tonight, and I went on the web page and I wondered why the proposed resolutions for the upcoming meeting are not posted on the web page, so that someone can look at it in advance, become a little bit knowledgeable for the meeting. So I'd like to ask the town clerk to put the proposed resolution for the upcoming meeting on the web page. And in addition to that, since we're recording the town council meetings, I was wondering why the recording could not be put on the webpage, so that citizens that cannot make the meeting can go on the webpage and actually watch the council meeting.
Well, we'll have a conversation with the clerk and see if we can't do that or accommodate it.
Great, thank you. I was also wondering why there's not a standard hiring procedure as far as a resolution. I mean, I know in the past couple of years there's been questions come up about hiring or assignments, town clerks, nepotism, whether it's advertised, not advertised. I mean, it seemed to me like it would be a basic business process to have a procedure that you follow that clearly states it'll be advertised
There is and there isn't.
And so on.
You know, if you wanted to have a conversation about it, I mean, you know, politics play a part, but at the same time, you can go out and solicit for resumes. So both tend to happen in government. So
Okay.
it's just up to the body of what they choose to do. It really is.
Well, at the very minimum, I mean, I don't see why it could not be advertised. I'm not saying you need to select the person that, but it seemed like that you would want to have a pool of people, and it seemed like that the people who are looking at jobs are entitled to be able to get a job in their own township, working for the township, if they're paying taxes to the township. I mean, it seemed to me like they ought to be aware and be able to apply for the job.
But, you know, it's kind of comes down to a matter of opinion, and I am of that opinion. I share that with you.
All right.
But ultimately, the body has to vote on it, and that's the 5 of us up here.
Well,
So-
that's why I'm addressing the body.
Yeah.
But,
And-
I mean, because I tell you, people feel uncomfortable with the back, you know, what we feel like are backroom deals.
I agree.
And I think, you know, some of them are backroom deals.
Nick, I'd be open to discussing creating an ordinance for that.
I think we could. Yeah. You're all, I think we should, yeah. I'm all for it. I think there
That'd be a
should be
great
rules
thing.
to it, and that every position in the municipality, at least, that, you know, you'd have to go out to RFP, and you solicit, you know, you could argue then at that point, you know, do you favor people that live in town or don't you? I mean, I don't think you should, just because you limit yourself at that point, too. And that's not always what you want to do. So I think that
Suppose it
doing
depends
that-
on how far down the rabbit hole you want to tumble with it.
Yeah, I mean, we can really get into it, but I mean, for right now, I think me and Councilman Longfellow would definitely look into that and see if we can't get it on the agenda for this year.
Great.
I agree too.
Thank you. The question about the previous business manager. This check was written January 1st, after his term expired. Was he legally authorized to write a check to
Well, it
himself?
wasn't a written check. It was a direct deposit on January 12th.
A direct deposit that he authorized, that he authorized on January 12th,
It's my information, sir.
beyond his term. So he
Right.
wasn't, okay.
That's why I have a problem with it.
Right. Okay. In lieu of the previous meeting and the meeting before that and the controversy associated with that and the local newspaper coverage, I became aware that the business manager newly hired has a car. And the question came to my mind, is that standard for the business manager? Did the previous business manager have a car provided by the township?
I don't
And
think
is
the
this-
previous business manager, the most recent one that we're talking about tonight, had a car, but I can tell you that being in this business for over 25 years, many full-time business administrators in a town as big as this, with as much going on, especially in the Faulkner Act form of government, absolutely have a vehicle to use for township business.
Okay. Now, is this?
I've been trying to get a car, but they won't let me have one,
Right,
so.
good. Is this vehicle also used in commuting back and forth to home and work?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So why is that?
The reason for that is because it may sound trite, but the business administrator is essentially, I wouldn't say 24/7, but is always dealing with a lot of issues. And again, the take-home policy, again, what I've seen, my experience in other communities, they sometimes travel from home, they sometimes deal with meetings outside of the township, so it becomes difficult and almost too mechanical to have them drive here, then take the vehicle, then drive back. It's pretty much of an efficiency, if you will, to allow them to have the vehicle go back and forth to home. In fact, I'm working on now a policy for the police department to allow police officers to bring their vehicles home as well. So it would be consistent with that.
But police officers do, right? Any police officer in town?
Talking about
does
out of
take-
town
Right, we're
officers.
talking about out of town now. We're talking about a Lexington policy. It's a policy that would allow them to go out of town with the
Well,
the
that's
vehicle.
another thing that to me, and maybe my 5 minutes is up, but to me doesn't make sense. You have a car sitting in a driveway for 16 hours a day, and during the weekends when they're not working, you're paying insurance on that car. I mean, to me, that doesn't sound like that we're looking to try to save taxpayer dollars.
It's a trade-off between that issue and micromanaging the particular vehicle. I can assure you that the vehicle that's being used, to your original question, it is an excess vehicle that wouldn't be otherwise being used for the township.
Right. All right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Kelly Graysbury. I'm at 519 Revere.
Would you say your name one more time, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Kelly Graysbury from 519 Revere, Women's
Thank you.
Square.
The clapping.
I lived in the low-income housing in Williamstown. I wasn't married. I don't have any children. It was just a matter of not being able to pay $1,500 a month for an apartment. Sorry, I'm pregnant. I'm losing out of breath. So, basically, every single day that I lived there, I would go up to the Williamstown Police Department. They did absolutely nothing to protect me. When I tell you that I had people trying to bang down my door because they thought that I called them the N-word, when really it was the woman that lived over top of me, and they confused me because we were both two white girls with brown hair. So I was up at that police department every single day. So they basically told me, you chose to live there, it's your problem.
This is Williamstown?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
So I just want to make sure that we don't have that problem in Washington Township. I mean, I even said, I'm like, I was born and raised in Washington Township. That would never happen. But who's to say that's not going to happen here? I mean, I understand there's nothing that we can do to be able to not have this be developed, but we have to also have our police force. Are we going to have to hire more? Is that what's going to happen?
I'll defer to the chief, he's here.
I
mean,
think
because-
he could give you his guarantee that if you went to the Washington Township Police Department and you had a complaint like that, they would definitely look into it.
Williamstown, the police department literally like laughed in my face.
Sorry.
Like, not only, like, it was traumatic for me. Like, even to this day, like, when I heard that they were going to be building, I cried. Because I was like, you got to be kidding me. Do I have to, I mean, I'm in Whitman Square. I'm a little further away, but, I mean, they were even vandalizing Joseph Nursery across the street. It was Justin Commons right off on 322. And if I could seriously do anything to this day to help, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's good people in there.
Yeah.
But I'm real close with a Turkish family that's in there, and they got harassed because they were Muslim. And it was and I'm talking about white people and black people, Spanish people. I'm not talking about any certain race. But it's just, I mean, the whole thing of 9/11, they were all made fun of, like graffiti. And then the most they could even complain about were the kids doing sidewalk chalk. It's like, really, what happened to your rule with not having pit bulls? Because there's been 5 new pit bulls here that are crapping right in front of where I walk to work every day, to my car. It was ridiculous. I had a woman standing outside, sitting on my park bench, waiting, a 45-year-old woman that I saw smoking crack in the park, literally in front of everybody. And I'm like, am I the only one that even cares? I mean, they're beautiful apartments. They're destroyed now. So my only problem is, let it stay in Williamstown. But if it's going to come to Washington Township, I'm going to be the first person to do something about it because I was personally traumatized by it. I did not live like that. I was not raised like that. I mean, listen, again, I was single. I had no children. I could have went back home, but I wanted to be out on my own and live my own life. So if I can't afford a $1,500 apartment and I have to go somewhere of these places and I got to deal with that, I would have been better off in Camden because at least I would expect that. So the only thing I'm asking, not that I'm directing this anger towards you guys, but it's upsetting. I just don't want that to happen here. So the only thing that, are we going to discuss this more about the Williamstown project, or is it just going to be approved and done with?
I'm sorry, what Williamstown project?
I mean, I'm sorry, the Washington Township project,
Which one?
the Resolution 107.
That was just the potential to
All right,
have it.
so it's not,
It's not set in stone.
I thought we were sued over it.
That's a separate issue.
Oh, okay. Well, also I'm saying that it's going to go. Everybody already knows it's going to go up. I mean, a certain amount, the townships have a certain amount in every town anyway.
Right.
So, also, it's going to just produce so much more as far as, I just want to make sure that our police departments, but not only that, that we're also screening these people way more than what those people were. So that's all I'm asking.
Ma'am.
And I'll be up here again if it goes up.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Good evening. Frank Cianci, Twin Ponds, Sewell, New Jersey. Sitting in the back listening, and just want to make sure I heard it right. When you asked for a motion and to approve the resolution to investigate the previous business administrator, the vote went 4-1, and I couldn't believe my ears that a person who was so set on saving taxpayer money last week, this week, where someone may have inappropriately gotten money, $17,000 to $18,000 of my tax dollars, voted no to give the solicitor the opportunity to investigate it. Not to move forward, just to investigate it. I really find that disturbing when 1 week you put on a dog and pony show and the following week you let $17,000 slip through your hands.
So
That's all I have to say.
Okay. I don't like to approve anything or vote anything because it's my name, and I would rather review supporting documentation before I have to vote on something. So I didn't feel comfortable at the time.
Council, good evening. How are you? Ralph Campana, 2 Pear Tree Place over in Sewell. Resolution 106, 217, the Kennedy Hospital parking facility. How long have we been renting / I guess it's considered a lease, leasing it to them? Now it says it's continue to lease. How long have we been doing that with them?
That'd be 2 years, sir.
2 years? Okay.
Correct. Contract just came due in February.
All right. Not to change the subject, but it's about property. The 2017 annual base lease at $1,200 for a piece of property. Sounds like farming land. How big is that? I mean, I see the township tax clear. Is that 5 acres, 2 acres, 100 acres?
It's a large area.
Okay. Now, how big is the property over at the Kennedy Hospital? 50 parking spaces.
No,
4
the
acres?
50 parking spaces are in our parking lot.
They're in our parking lot at
Yes.
the...
They have a lease to pay $1,000 a month.
At the municipal building right here?
Right outside.
Oh, okay. All right. So they're paying the same now they did 2 years ago, and it's $1,000. It comes out. So it's 50 cars. They're allowed to park here for $1,000 a month.
That's correct.
Does that seem? I'm just drawing a blank. Does that seem ridiculously cheap for a big company to pay for 50 parking spaces per day if needed? $1,000 a month. Does that seem? Does that seem like a little bit of money, or am I just?
Can I just ask a question? This
confused.
went out for a request for lease, so it went out to bid, correct? Or no?
It did not. It was a renewal.
Okay, so this was a renewal, but there's no other interest in this, correct?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is there any other interest from any other companies?
No.
Okay.
So that makes $1,000. I just like the even number 1,000. I don't like even numbers. It's just the kind of business I was in for 36 years. I do not like even numbers. But $1,000 a month for 50 cars to be able to park anywhere in Washington Township.
I think right now we should be kind of happy that we do have that. I mean, it's a little.
If they have no place else to park, I'm not saying let's hold them up, but let's just go with some kind of an increase or something. Because I'm going to be paying more for my taxes because it costs more to run the town. It's going to cost a little bit more for them to park, maybe. And again, it's only a little bit of money, but a little bit of money on this resolution, a little bit of money on that resolution, maybe it'll just pass through. It just dawned on me when I saw it. I don't know. I'm not trying to pick the fly poop out of the pepper here, but all due respects, it just seems like it's for nothing. Comes out to 66 cents a day for a car to park, 7 days a week. 66 cents a day. I'm not saying charge them Philadelphia fees, but it just sounds like it's ridiculously cheap. I don't know how you can approve it so fast and keep it the same. Sorry. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She should go first. She didn't speak yet.
Sure.
Next Christine Cangelos, Whitman Square. I have a question about this issue with the business manager, former business manager. He came into the building, Mr. Platt, you said he came in one day, January 1st.
Yes.
His check was cut like on January 12th or something?
The direct deposit was issued to him on January 12th.
And who authorized that? I'm just wondering who authorized
There
that.
my information is that he authorized it.
Okay, I just wondered if
Now,
anybody else.
just remember that it would have been he would have been entitled to, the payroll runs every 2 weeks, so I think this was included, I'm not sure, but I think it was included in his payroll.
The 29th would have been the day that the payroll would have had to been entered.
So this looks like, and according to the records I have, it was a direct deposit on January 12th.
Okay, I did that.
I'll tell you one thing, nobody up here authorized it, that's for sure.
Okay, but I was just wondering if anybody else within the governing body might have had anything to do with it.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, that's fine.
I can assure you that.
I'm a little confused. How could you authorize your own check? Isn't there a control in place?
Well, there's certain things that are better left unsaid at this point.
I think where you're going with that, Mr. Platt, is that for protecting the town, that remains unsaid so that you protect our rights in litigation. Is that what you're saying?
Always, yes.
Okay. So continuing down this theme of contracts with former employers, for the record, Brian McBride, 86 Goodwin Parkway again. Mr. Platt, you've done a detailed review of this. Can you hear me okay?
I'm just a little hard of hearing. Go ahead.
Okay. You did a detailed review of this contract, and I applaud you for that. And even if your salary is covered by the ordinance, I do think you should be billing the former business administrator for your time. That should be part of that.
Well, if you're one of the people out there that said attorneys like me should be getting paid more, I applaud you for that. So.
I didn't. No, that's not what I said. What I said was that
that's how I heard it. I don't know.
We're already paying. I'm not a politician. I don't mince my words. I have a very hard time speaking out of both sides of my mouth. So what I said was, if you're being paid by the municipality as a salary, that time you spend on that, while it's not an additional billable hour, you should be, I would ask that you charge that to the former business administrator if he is indeed guilty of what he did. That should be part of the demand that the council asks of Mr. Smith, what the deposit was on 12th plus council's time.
Whenever I make a claim on behalf of a client for this type of thing, I always demand that they pay for any attorney's fees and costs of suit if we're forced to go to court.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that authority just yet, but we'll see where my initial recovery actions take us.
All right,
probably get it.
The next question that I have, and this is related to not the matter with Mr. Smith, but when the township enters into an agreement with another party, the understanding is that the township expects that other party to follow the terms of that agreement. Is that not correct?
I would think that's a general principle to all contracts.
Okay, good. So if a former employee enters into a contract with the Township of Washington or an agreement, and they break it, it would reasonably be this body's opinion that consequences should befall that person who breached the agreement. Is that not correct, Mr. President? Would you agree that if somebody breached their contract with this town, that they should be held accountable?
I would imagine, yeah.
Members of council, do you agree with that? That if somebody breaks their contract with the Township of Washington, that by and through council, they should be held accountable? I'm seeing some nods. Okay. So, not being an attorney, Mr. Platt, I want to read to you from an agreement the Township of Washington made with a party. Section 8, non-disparagement. The parties agree that they shall not make any remarks or comments of a derogatory, negative, or disparaging nature about the other parties to this agreement or any of its affiliated entities in writing or orally to anyone. Now, not being an attorney, what is the legal standard for the township? What does the township mean when they say derogatory, negative, or disparaging? What goes into that?
I really can't answer that question. I mean, the document speaks for itself.
Okay, so
is there a particular contract? Because I'm not going to answer your questions out of context.
Okay, well,
so if you're driving to a point,
I am.
Let me know,
okay.
And I can assure you that I'll review it. But you're not going to get automatic, immediate questions from me because
Okay.
being an attorney, I have to think about what you're asking. I have to take a look at all the facts and circumstances, and then ultimately render opinion. If counsel wants me to, because
Okay.
I represent counsel.
I understand that. So let me make a point. If somebody disparages the township and there's a written agreement that says that they shouldn't disparage the township or speak of the township in a negative light, then they should be held accountable if they violate that. So if I may, Mr. President, may I play some audio for the council and for the people here?
May?
Bear with me. Technology doesn't always work.
Back in the 1980s, first we had an elected mayor at the time, Jerry Luongo, and he got this town thriving. He actually made this town a premier community. He made it such a premier community that he had the word premier put on the water tower as you entered the town. Well, over the years, we lost that premier community because once he was out of office, the Democrats took over, and the Democrats took our town to a spiral downward. So now when they repainted the water tower, the word premier came off the water tower. People came to the premier community. That's where they wanted to come to. And it was well known throughout the state. We had a good school system. We had good parks. You look at the parks falling apart. You look at our township lake that had a beach that's closed. We had a clean town. We had good roads. We had numerous businesses. We were a thriving area. And over the last 16 years, we're no longer a premier community. That's what labeled our town. That's what made our town recognizable throughout the South Jersey area, because people used to come and say, hey, you're from that premier community. Had to take it off the water tower because when you drive around, it doesn't look like that anymore. I'm Joe McCucci, and I approve this message.
Mr. Platt, how is that not derogatory, negative, or disparaging to the Township of Washington?
Listen, I don't render legal opinions to you, sir. I appreciate your comments. You can make comments. This is not a Q&A session. I represent the council. You're asking me a question way out of context.
So I understand.
If you have a contract that you think that somebody was a party to that had a provision, and there was and again, if it involves council and somebody's making a claim against council, I'll review that. If that's a comment from somebody that I don't know if doesn't appear to be a council member, I don't think there's a claim to even evaluate. So you're asking me to evaluate something that's really not part of what I do in my role as township solicitor.
I understand. I'll redirect that to the president. Mr. President.
I have a hard time finding what exactly would be derogatory about the town. Now, what he says is, from what it sounds like, it's premier community. He keeps bringing that up. But I think that in a settlement agreement that states that, I'm not really sure. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what the answer is. And I don't know how Stuart could answer this too, but it's just that it's hard to make that call without having to go to court and fight about it.
What I think is that if we're in the business of recovering money for the township, for the taxpayers, I'm almost finished, recovering money for the taxpayers who paid out a $4,500 settlement agreement on this particular case, that money should come back to us, because in my opinion, that puts the township in a negative light, and that's still on social media today. So my opinion of this council is that if you're going to get money back from Bob Smith, I think the $4,500 that was paid to the zoning officer should be collected back, because I think that's a breach of the agreement, and that's my personal opinion. So I ask this council to consider asking for that $4,500 back. Thank you.
Good evening. Just wanted, my name's Bill McMurtry, 54 Cricket Lane. I wanted to just let the council and the mayor know about the property next to mine, 52 Cricket Lane's been abandoned for 4 years. Mold filled throughout the house. Back in the summertime, some contracting crew came out with a pickup truck for about a week, started ripping it apart, left tons of it, not tons, but they left a lot of the moldy sheetrock in the backyard next to my house. You know, and I don't think anybody could see it from the street, but I could see it. And I don't think it's safe. The house, anybody who ever went in to look in that house came running out. The mold was so bad inside of it. I don't know who takes care of that. Somebody can look into it. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's not good for the value of my house or anybody else's house around there, and it's got to be unsafe.
Your address is 44 Cricket Lane?
54. 52 is the address of the house that's abandoned.
52 is the abandoned house?
Yes. For
We'll take a
4
look
years
into
it's
that.
been abandoned.
Yeah, I'm sure the
I don't know
administration
who
will.
owns it. You know, I don't know if
We'll
it's
get to
a
the
bank.
bottom of it.
I'm not sure who owns it. It was foreclosed. So,
It's probably on the list of houses that are getting built that are abandoned like that.
yeah, I know there's
would have
tons
to
of
check that. I'm not
foreclosed
100%.
houses, but this, with the mold in there, it's, that's what I've been told. I've never walked in it after the people that just left, but it can't be safe, and it's going to get worse, I guess, in the summertime comes up with the heat.
We'll look into it as soon as possible.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Another question I have, Cricket Lane. The whole street was repaved. Well, let's put it this way. The street was repaved, but 80% of it was repaved. The part in front of my house and where I have a sinkhole wasn't repaved. I don't know why. I mean, why wasn't it never finished? I don't know whether the engineer
Nina, you
explained
should
that.
come up and answer this.
I was told by Miss McCrae's office when I called back in the summer that they ran out of money. It was a state block grant. Well, how do you decide to do a whole street, but you don't have enough money to finish it?
So the township gets community development block grants. Hopefully, we continue to get them annually. And they have a certain funding source and a certain funding limit for that given year.
Right.
And so there routinely are areas of town that are eligible for us to use those. And so we try to kind of come through and get those areas of town as we can, move forward with that. So that was the limits of the grant at that point in time. It doesn't mean that it's not getting completed. It just means it was that funds that were available at that time.
But the worst part of it was between my house and the house next door, and that didn't get touched.
What you're talking about is there's failure at the road by
There
an
was a
inlet.
sewer.
And the inlet repair had needed to be completed by
Right, and
Public Works
you're
in
right.
advance, and it was actually a good stopping point because the underneath, which again couldn't be afforded in the grant, needed to be
Right.
fixed first.
Right.
Which I believe has since been
But
addressed.
nobody ever told me that, but they came out later
No one
to
asked,
do it.
no, I apologize, no one asked me to talk to you. But there was actually a viable reason, but that underneath needed to be fixed as well. So it was actually a good stopping point for the grant.
Right.
But it will be getting done.
When?
We're waiting on the next grant round, and
It
where we
took
can
2
have.
years to- It usually takes about 2 years to get grant money from the state, right?
It's actually, the Community Development Block Grant is actually annual funding that comes through federally and is administered by the county for the township. So, but this is a conversation about the future roads and capital work to be done about whether that section of Cricket simply gets included in some other ones to get it moved forward faster. But I'm just letting you know that's why it stopped, and it was also that worst section needed a different repair underneath in the pipe.
Right. And I could see that, so you would have to dig it up after you repaved it. But now it's just going to push it back more, push it to the right, and who knows when it'll get done.
Spring is coming.
I know. But I saw some papers here that there was a couple resolutions to increase the amount of funds for Cricket Lane, and then number 2, decrease the amount of fund for Cricket Lane. What was the reason behind that? 14,000, and then it was decreased 13,000.
So the increase it was before this council was up here. When we got the bids for Cricket Lane, it came in under the amount of funds. So it was increased to try to get more roadway done.
Was that bid to do the whole street?
No.
Or just 80% of it?
No, it's just what it was, try to size it for estimate for what you think you can get done with the amount of grant monies you had.
Okay.
And so actually it was increased to try to grow that further along down the road and get more asphalt done. The decrease was other items that weren't completed, but the contractor doesn't come back and remobilize.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for your time.
Frank Cianci, Twin Ponds. Just one quick question. With all this confusion and stuff going on with Premier Community written on the water tower and whatever people's opinions are on why it was taken off, this council, this administration, previous councils and previous administrations had nothing to do with Premier Community being put on that water tower. It was the MUA that did that. At the time, they did it. The town was a thriving community, and they thought it was a good idea to do that. Recently, the water tower was in need of painting. So when they had it repainted, they put Washington Township up there, and the MUA board got together and said, what can we do in this town to do something for our veterans, and they decided they'd like to salute our veterans. So now that's why you have the new slogan up there. So it had nothing to do with we're taking Premier Community down, putting it up for whatever reason. So people can make their own opinion of things. They can make it political or whatever, but that was the reason, and don't let anybody tell you different. It's in the minutes. Thank you.
Good evening again, Chet Nowaski, Heritage Valley. It was brought to our attention tonight that the business administrator has been given a car for commuting back and forth and for doing his job. Can I ask what kind of car that is?
That'd be a 2006 Ford Crown Victoria, 75,000 miles.
Is that one of the cars that we normally have, like at McClure Drive or parked out here in the parking lot? The white cars with the Township logo on the side?
This is an all-blue vehicle. There's many of them over there, though.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Here we go. Can't reach. Joe Fernicola, 14 Goodwin Parkway. I would like to say to Robin, good job on collecting the property taxes. What are we doing about commercial delinquencies? There's a ton of commercial real estate that I know is significant that's not been paid. Who's actually working, or is there somebody being hired to collect those things, those particular taxes that have been arrearage for close to 10 years, I believe?
For commercial properties?
Commercial properties that are vacant and there's nobody collecting anything on them.
That's more along, like, if...
I realize
Let's
it.
talk about the Black Horse Pike. Empty storefronts.
Well, also on Delsey Drive, there's properties too.
Those properties, they're still paying their taxes. The landlord isn't collecting any rent. The landlord uses that property as a write-off. So it's more lucrative for them sometimes to leave it as a write-off. And that's what happens a lot of times, why there's no one in there.
Granted. However, what is the dollar amount that we would have been in receipt of if it was collected?
The rent wouldn't apply to us. That is
No, I'm talking
strictly-
about the owner paying the taxes.
They are
You're saying-
paying their taxes.
They are paying their taxes.
So you're saying they're paying them in full? We don't have any delinquent properties at all?
1.01%, I think, of whatever the...
And I stand to be corrected, because
Yeah.
I got the understanding it wasn't the case. All right, my apologies. I'd like to touch on something about this ordinance of Washington Square. Where are we with this thing, from the standpoint of expectation of really generating revenue for the municipality?
I think you're going to see construction start in the next year.
Now, is this a spec building scenario?
I think it's going to go to a planning board for approval.
No,
It
I
already
mean,
has been.
is it based on bona fide purchasers, or are they just going to build these townhouses and so forth? I mean, they're just going to build them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have an understanding of the price range on these things?
I believe it was discussed. I don't remember.
I mean, is there any updates on it? I'm not, I haven't heard any updates on the situation.
I can give you some update on the beginning of construction. We're talking about Washington Square now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole project has been divided into 6 sub-projects.
All right.
So it's not all going to be built at the same time. Nobody ever builds everything all at one time. But I did get a call from their attorney and their in-house attorney that they're looking to get their final sign-offs and file their subdivision plot, which is the beginning of the process where they begin to pull construction permits. They tell me that construction permits are imminent, so they believe that they're going to be constructing different portions of the entire development real soon.
Okay, thank you on that. One of the things I think would be an accomplishment on behalf of the municipality here and the people that live here, obviously, is to seriously consider putting in a civil service format to get rid of this corruption, nepotism, and this nonsense that goes on in this township. I really believe that's the only way to prevent any more litigations to the extent that's been going on behind closed doors. I just can't believe how much litigation is going on in this municipality. I think we should, the people, township residents deserve a better shot at keeping their taxes low. We don't need to have litigations, tons of them. And I believe some of these didn't even go to mediation. This was just bingo. And the damages in certain cases or significantly less what legal fees we paid on these particular things. I really think if you want to accomplish something for this municipality, come up with a better solution hiring people and controlling the nepotism and the cronyism in this township. It's rampant. It's been going on for years. And I urge you people to seriously come up with a resolution. And this is the time you can prove to these people here and myself that you're going to do something positive. You know, it's one thing, you know, bringing in big business, which we've always hoped that would transpire, but it's another thing to cut this nonsense out with hiring practices, which are always questionable. One time we had a township clerk that there was a job announcement, a person was hired in between the time frame. Now we don't have anything. We're inconsistent. This is serious stuff. We got to have something going on here that makes some sense. We need respectability. And the more we see, the more I read about cronyism and nepotism, family members hiring family members, people being passed over, whether or not they have seniority or not, this is absurd. This is nonsense. We can't do this anymore.
Well, me and Councilman Longfellow already agreed that we're going to try to put.
I'd like to see a resolution be considered within the next 3 to 6 months.
We'll do it by ordinance so it becomes law.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
And then
because this is the best way to
might
control
take
this nonsense.
About 6 months, maybe sooner, but we're going to try and work on it.
Well, I
We
hope
really
so.
will.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Gentleman before me deserves that applause. But to add to his point, while you're considering that ordinance, Councilman Longfellow and Fazio, one point that you should put in there, and this will probably help with the insurance premiums for employment litigation, is that it should be the policy of the Township of Washington that there is no future reemployment for anyone who has brought any type of legal charge against this town, be it a court case, an arbitration, or anything before any administrative body. If we're settling with a former employee, that relationship needs to be done, and there needs to be no prospect for future reemployment. Thank you.
Ralph Campana, 2 Pear Tree Place. I forgot a couple little things. The gentleman earlier had asked about the video portion of our meeting, what we're doing here. It is on Verizon and on Comcast. I believe it's channel 36 or 39 on Verizon. The problem with it is, though, it is so distorted and crackling every time I watch it. I figured eventually they would fix it, but the actual broadcast is just distorted. And my final point for this evening for me would be, is there any reason why when there is litigation and or employment, when we go forward from now on, that we can actually list what salaries are and things like that? When we list what litigation settlements are, do we list the whole amount? In other words, the settlement was for X amount of dollars, $12,000. Like, what did we pay for attorney's fees? In other words, like total costs. So again, the transparency can be transparent towards people like myself and the rest of the residents, just so we can grasp what's going on. It just looks better when we know. Is it going to make a difference? Maybe, maybe not. But it would be nice to be a little more transparent. I just like that. I'm a numbers guy. I just like looking at numbers for whatever reason. I just enjoy it, but just so I understand what's going on, maybe we would have less questions. At least I would. In other words, you get a job, your package, whatever it is, what the package is. The settlement, what did we pay for attorney's fees on this case that just settled? I mean, I'm sure we had, again, is that personal or is that something that's disclosable?
Those attorney's fees actually were paid for by the insurance company.
Okay. And our premiums, I guess, are kind of still, staying the same, I hope?
Well, they evaluate those every year, and there's a number of factors that go in there.
Okay.
But obviously, one of the things we try to do, and what they did tonight was you try to do what you can to mitigate and possibly eliminate litigation and to end litigation when it makes sense. And that's why they voted to do what they did tonight, to end that litigation, because if there's a large payout in a case like that or another case, settlement brings finality, and if you don't settle the case, who knows where it goes. And what they did tonight goes a long way towards making sure that the premiums are kept stable as much as you can. As you say, every little bit counts.
It does. I'm just waiting to see what the property taxes are going to be like a year or two from now. That's my big thing. That's what I'm really interested in.
I didn't bring the lawsuit, sir.
Oh, well, I know you didn't, but I mean, all the other things that we're doing in the township, it's all going to come running down to my pocketbook. I hope not.
Do our best to keep them down.
Thank you.
Hi, Debbie Blisick, 86 Goodwin Parkway. I just want to write off the hiring process. While you're thinking about that, can we have a list of job descriptions of what people are accountable in this area, in this township? For example, what are the metrics that the business administrator is going to produce by the end of the year, and have a performance review at the end of the year, so that when there are ordinances regarding salaries that are, produced to the public, that we have an idea, okay, if he produced this outcome, this metric for this year, then maybe he does deserve a salary increase. I think the optics don't look good when you don't have job descriptions out there for people like us to see, for the public to see. So producing the outcomes and the metrics, what are their metrics for each job, and then having a performance review at the end of the year, like every business does. And that dictates whether I get a raise or not. So I just encourage, when you're going through that process, that you include, okay, there's a hiring process, but there's also the yearly process.
Seeing no one else from the public, motion to close.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion?
I'm sorry, wait a minute.
No, council comments, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this
I
was new.
retract that
Council
motion.
comments, I think.
That's not new, you just didn't realize because we knew to ship this stuff.
Oh,
What?
okay.
Sorry, wait, what?
We've always done that.
Did we?
Yes, sir.
What is this?
I don't have any comments.
Anybody? Comments?
I
Can we
just
do that in
have,
reports?
I just have one. Atlantic City Electric is providing 1,150 free trees to its residential customers. It's on a first-come, first-served basis. If anybody's interested in it, the website is www.arborday.org/ACE, or you can call 1-855-670-2773. The trees are 4 foot tall, and they will deliver them to your residence. So,
Thanks.
Any other comments?
We need a zoning permit for those trees?
Yeah, you do.
Motion to adjourn.
Want me to make the motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.